Hi, everybody. Welcome to our session on positioning for tech opportunities in the AI age. How's everybody doing? I'm looking at the chat to see. Lovely. Nice. Brilliant. So we're going to talk about AI, and it's a lot of AI this, AI that, but that's the world that we live in, right? And so absolutely, let's talk about how to position yourself for opportunities and even to advance in your career in this new world of AI. Okay, so to begin with, we'll just do a short intro. So my name is Tosin and Jobin. I work at Amazon in the technical talent acquisition space. I work out of our Germany office, but I'm right here in London for CBF Fest. So yay. And then I've been at Amazon for 3+ years now, so going into the fourth year. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jobin, for his intro.
Thanks, Tosin. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Hope all you're doing well. As a quick introduction, my name is Jobin James, and similar to Tosin, I am part of the talent acquisition team in Amazon. I've been with Amazon for a little more than 3.5 years now, based out of our London office. And yeah, super excited to be part of this fest.
Yay. Thanks, Jobin. So the plan today is very simple. I'm going to cover the first part of the talk, where we would look at, some things related to competencies and the like. And then the last part of the talk will be covered by Jobin, where he would tell you, like practical tips, practical ways by which you can prepare yourself for interviews, for example, at Amazon, if you're interested in joining Amazon or other companies, of course, because what he's going to share with you principles that would help you in your application and with your interviews. Okay, and after that, we would take questions. So please, if you have any question, put it in the Q&A section, and at the end of the talk, we would be able to pick that up. All right, to begin with, I would like to hear your opinion on this. So what are the common things that people say, with regards to AI replacing developers? I know we've heard that a lot, but it never grows old. Or what are your thoughts about AI replacing you as a developer or as a technical expert? Mindful that everybody is not into developing and the rest of that, but I'm just using developer as a placeholder for all the technical work that you do. So what do you think? What are your thoughts? I'm going to look into the chat and try to see what comes up. What are the common, talk around? Yeah, AI is going to replace and all of that. Thank you, Micheline. I don't think AI would take my developer job. That's right. But companies are looking for those with AI experience over those who do not have. Absolutely. Oluwakemi says, trying to be optimistic. Absolutely. We need that in this world of work. I don't think they'll replace us completely. Probably they'll automate a lot of tasks that we do. Very good. Maybe one or two more, and then we move on. What is this common talk about? Oh, the machine you build is someday going to replace you. Any more? Okay, thanks, Monica. AI can never, I love that. I love the never. AI can never remove the human in the loop. Absolutely. So let's move on. And I'm just going to, put together everything that you've said and a bit more to talk about this common theme that seems to come up a lot. Right. So AI would not, like you rightly said, would not replace the developer or the technical professional. What AI would do is to enhance the work that you do. So AI would enhance developers. And like someone rightly said, it is not the person who is using AI that will get replaced. It's the one who refuses to use AI that will get replaced. Why? Because one common concern or thing or topic or theme that people talk about is over automation. Like everything is getting automated. And I think somebody mentioned that in the chat as well. Why is this important? It's important because it would increase the productivity of the developer. It will free up more time to do more high value tasks. So if something is repetitive, if something does not, in quote, require the human in the loop, then we should absolutely automate it. So as we look at the work we do, we're looking into it and we are saying what can be automated, what should be automated. And as long as we don't need the human in the loop, we automate it, and then it increases the speed at which we're able to deliver. Another common concern is that AI would take away opportunities from entry-level developers or career changes. Now, maybe there's somebody here today who's like, you're an entry-level professional, or what we call early careers as well, or you're looking to pivot into the tech space, and you're thinking to yourself, like, are there even any opportunities? Because normally what this role used to do in the past is what AI is doing today. My response to that is, what we're saying is that the role of the entry-level developer or the early career professional is beginning to evolve. So in this world of AI, what that job would look like would be different from what it looked like, a few years ago. And that's because we now have AI to drive efficiency. So the responsibility of the developer or the early careers professional in this world of AI is to be familiar with what is required of them, to understand what, and I'm going to talk about some of that as well. Like, what are the competencies that you need to make you stand out as a candidate? Because it's an evolving world, it's a changing world, and we're not ignorant of that. But it's absolutely not going to take away those opportunities. It's just going to create new opportunities. And that's why it's important to understand what those opportunities are. And then the final one I want to talk about is AI apathy. So there'll be a lot of over-reliance of developers on AI tools. It's going to replace critical thinking. It's going to replace innovation. Absolutely not. The reverse is actually the case, because with the addition of this different AI tools and the like, the need for critical thinking and innovation will become even more important. Because as we use this tool, it's sort of like you're experimenting. So we want to see more refinement in how these different technologies and these different tools are used. And that's why the human in the loop becomes increasingly important, because you're critically thinking through this. You're thinking of how to innovate, how to refine, and the rest of that. So bottom line, AI will not replace developers. I mean, we've heard that a lot, as you know, but it bears repetition that it's not going to replace the developer. It's only going to enhance the work that the developer or the technical expert does. Okay, moving on. And I put this together in just this caption that AI would enhance and speed up how tech is delivered, but it would not replace the critical thinking that is still needed by humans. Because in the end, think about this along with me. The machine input that we see is only as good as the human input. So the human is the one that is critical in this equation. The machine is there, but we need the human, and that human needs to evolve, that human needs to develop so that the output that we're getting from the machine is even more advanced. Okay, moving on. What are some tech on-demand competencies that are still very important and will still be important in this world of AI? Algorithm and data structures. Now, understanding how to use common algorithms and how to use data structures to solve problems is very important. Sometimes we see in interviews, and this is basically where the difference lies. We see in interviews that the candidate is able to produce the perfect answer, but does not have the understanding of the path that they took to the perfect answer. So the shift is now on testing the understanding on the route that they took to get to that perfect answer. So the focus is not so much on the perfect answer. The focus is now on the how. And the how is basically a measure of the understanding. And by talking about the understanding, we're talking about the fundamentals of software development, software engineering, and the like. So understanding how these algorithms work, understanding how you use these different data structures to solve problems is still a skill, a tech skill that is being sought after by employers. Okay. And then, of course, logical and maintainable coding. So you can use AI to do this, obviously, but the human still needs to look at it. How can, for example, can somebody who has no knowledge of that project, pick up your code? Can they easily understand it? Can they evolve the logic? Can they debug it? Can they continue to work with it? Basically, evolve the logic that you started with. We've seen some shortcomings when it comes to using AI, and that's why the human has to pick this up, rework it, and make it into what we call logical and maintainable coding. These are questions that will be asked when you have, for example, a technical interview. So again, just producing the perfect code or the perfect answer is not the competence that is being tested. It's the understanding of how these different components work together that is being tested. That's what will be tested, or that is what is being tested nowadays. And then, of course, problem solving as well. And then system design. So we use AI, and you're going to see that in the next slide that I will talk about, as a partner in system design problems. But the human still needs to understand how to scale the system, still needs to understand how to build reliable systems. All of these are fundamentals of system design. And these are the things that are being tested. So if you want to position yourself for opportunities in this world of AI, an understanding of these key components is not something that has gone away, or that at least in the foreseeable future we see would go away anytime soon. So honing those skills and getting into those details remains increasingly important. Okay. Moving on. So what are some AI related competencies that you can begin to develop, or that you can begin to think about? Because these competencies would help you shine as a candidate. It's basically what would differentiate you from other candidates. Now, we know that it's like they say nowadays, it's an employer's market, relative to a few years ago where it was the candidates market. There's been that switch, but don't misunderstand this to think that employers are not looking for candidates or are not looking for competencies. However, in the selection process, there will be certain things that would differentiate candidate A from candidate B and candidate C. And some of that in the AI spectrum of things are what you have on your screen. So prompt engineering, model evaluation, data quality management, we're talking about data governance and all of that as it relates to AI. So an understanding of some of this is something that would make you shine as a candidate. And then, of course, AI enhanced system design. So these are not, the point I'm trying to make is that these are not things to just put on the side or just to overlook. If you want to go for competitive opportunities, if you want to stand out as a candidate, these are areas that you need to begin to think about critically and try to develop yourself in this area. And then even work on some, open source type of projects to test the competencies that you've developed in this area, maybe through a course or a training or boot camp and the like. Okay, moving on to the next slide, which is going to be my final slide before I hand over to Jobin. And that's this. This is like the most important one, I would say, the human focus competencies. Now, we have it from science, like the data tells us that the capacity of the human brain is phenomenal. So I was looking at this, and then it was saying that the human brain has about 100, it says at least 100 trillion parameters. That just talks about the computational power of the human brain. At the moment, AI is not anywhere near this, right? And that tells you about the capacity of the human brain to rethink processes, to look at how we do things and think of ways by which we can do them better. Think about the most innovative products that we have in the world today and the ones that you and I use on a daily basis, or sometimes, these are things that came out of a place of critical thinking. So the human asking question, the human trying to find a better way or a more advanced way to do it. And that's critical thinking. That's something that AI cannot do for you. There's also the topic of parallel thinking, where the human brain has, massive capacity to do this relative to AI. All right. Now, let me talk about communication and collaboration. But before that, I want to ask this question. So I work in the recruitment space, and maybe, I expect that most of us have gone through job application, stages in the past and the rest of that. How many people would like the recruitment process to be completely automated? Completely automated. Like, so you don't speak to anybody, everything is completely automated. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs down. No thumbs up. Okay, okay. I mean, that's brilliant. I'm also like 100% thumbs down because I want to talk to real people, right? That's why we're having this conference. Why is CBF Fest not automated? Why don't we have robots conducting talks or running trainings for us and the likes? We want to see real people. We want to have that interaction. That's something that you cannot give to AI. AI can never replace that. So like I was saying about the job interview process, you want to speak to a human. You want to speak to potentially your future manager, your team members. You want to see, like, is this really where I want to be? Is this the company I want to join? Right? You cannot automate that. And that's why the human focused competence becomes even more important. So communication skills. Jobin is going to talk to you about how to communicate during interviews, for example, using the STAR mechanism. But this is becoming very important. I like to say that communication is a lifelong skill. It's something that we never stop developing, rather. It's something that we have to continuously develop. So how can I be a better communicator? As a team member, as a manager, as an employee in everyday life, how can I communicate better? How can I articulate my thoughts in a clearer way and the like? This is something that we rely on the human to do. There's also the part of collaboration and conflict resolution. So sometimes things happen on the team. Do we rely on AI to do that for us? No, we want the human in the loop. There's also empathy. The human can feel, the human can understand. Sometimes maybe somebody's having a bad day and something happens and they're not at their best. The machine does not understand that. The human understands that. The human is able to make adjustments. The human is able to adapt. There's also ethics. There was a talk earlier on about, AI, and there's a lot of conversation about that. AI does not understand ethics. It's just a free world, free. It's like a free citizen in a free country that can do anything. That's where the human has to restrain it so that it does not go, haywire, like we would say. So this is where the human brings in a lot of value. And of course, there's the domain expertise. So imagine that you have a lot of experience in a particular company or particular field or a particular industry. That is invaluable. That is something that cannot be replaced by AI because you've seen different ways by which things have worked and you understand the different nuances that are related to this. So the human focused competencies are increasingly becoming important. And when you go for interviews, these are things that would be looked at. And if you want to position yourself for very good opportunities, for the opportunities that you want, because it's different for different people. These are skills that we need to think about. These are skills that we need to continuously develop. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. And remember, if you have questions, please put it in the Q&A box, and I would pass it on to Jobin.
Thank you, Tosin. Let me share screen. Ironically, I've been having some tech issues since this morning. Hopefully, it doesn't happen now.
I can also continue sharing if you want.
Yeah, I'm just giving it a go once again.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great, fantastic. So I'll just start by saying, so again, being working at Amazon, we are quite data obsessed. So I'll start with sharing some data points. Essentially, I'll just give you an overview of how the current recruitment landscape is, right? So just to give you some numbers, right now, 2025, we have 87% of the companies using AI for recruitment processes, and 75% of HR professionals using the various generative AI tools. That's quite a significant number, as you can see, right? And which obviously brings in a lot of regulatory aspects as well, which is good. So the EU AI Act that has brought in checks and regulatory processes that sort of keeps a check on the usage of AI. And for example, as you can see, there are quite a few banned uses as well, use cases. For example, the emotion recognitions, the biometric categorizations, all of this sort of helps to bring in that check, like I previously mentioned. And obviously, all that comes with a huge amount in penalties as well. So employers are quite cautious about that. Um, and then, secondly, I wanted to share on the right side of the slide, there's a snapshot from the World Economic Forum that you can see. Um, it basically gives you an idea of the split between the tasks that are done by technology, by people, and a mix of both. It gives you a comparison of what's happening now and the kind of trend you will see by 2030, right? So now, as you can see, majority of it, it's 47% of it, it's primarily, those are tasks which are done by people, right? And the shift is going to slightly move in the right, into the direction where it'll be a one-third split of technology, one-third human, and the remaining one-third would be a mix of both, right? So that's just to give you an indicator of how the shift is going to be in the next few years. Um, Next, just wanted to talk about some key, technologies, AI technologies that talent acquisition per se have been using, that in a positive way has sort of increased efficiencies as well. As you can see on the left side of the screen, there are things like AI-powered resume screening. There are chatbots and conversational AI, predictive hiring analytics, things like internal mobility platforms. Just to give you an example, like for us in Amazon, like we have certain tools that sort of helps internal employees um, to match their skill set to various job opportunities that are open within Amazon, right? So it kind of matches what our skills are, and then it suggests different job roles that are open, which is quite cool, because it kind of um, helps us give that opportunity, to explore things that we would probably might miss in certain cases. So those are some good aspects that AI brings in. And obviously on the right side, you can see some of the advantages of that. It kind of has efficiency gains. There's reduction, a huge reduction in time to hire. There's a lot of candidate experience improvements. Earlier, as most of you would have experienced, we've gone through an interview process. It takes days, weeks, or even months for the recruiters or the organization to come back to you, sometimes even not. And having these tools, sometimes it reduces the kind of lead time, and the response times as well, drastically. So that is good from a candidate experience perspective. And also in terms of the quality of hire as well, we've seen diversity levels improve as well, primarily because it reduces the subjectivity and brings in more of the objectivity piece. So things like that. um, So now I just wanted to touch upon few non-technical aspects. Obviously, Tosin had covered the technical side of things. Just so what I'll do is in the following slides, I'll be just sharing some sort of tips and tricks that you can use for your interviews whenever you're going through one, right? So just talking about behavioral questions, right? So this um, essentially is a very standard tool for recruiters. And the aim of that is to predict the future performance by understanding your past experiences and how you've sort of gone about um, navigating through those challenges and the solutions that you came up with. Most of the employers use this sort of questioning methodology, right? And the slide just gives you some of the some of examples that you typically get. Like, for example, tell me about a time when you took on something significant outside your area of responsibility. Why was it important? What was the outcome? What was the lessons learned? So things like that. So just makes you think about your past experience, what you've done, and it sort of gives an indicator to the recruiter as to how your future performance might look like. Um, Tosin touched upon this briefly, the STAR methodology. It's nothing but a way of answering your questions. I feel it's a very powerful mechanism or a tool or a process or a methodology that you can use to sort of answer questions. It's nothing but so STAR is an acronym. I think some of you might already know this, but again, for those of you who don't, it's an acronym for situation, task, action, and results, right? So it just, like I said before, it gives you a way of structuring your answers for the questions asked during the interviews. I'll just briefly touch upon each of them. Right, so you start your answer by setting the context. So that's the situation bit, right? You talk about what is the situation that you were in, or the example that you're going to share. Um, and then you talk about the task as to what was your goal, right? What is it that you were working towards in that particular situation? So these two aspects, situation and task, somewhat creates a context for the example that you're going to share with the interviewer. um, then comes the I'd say the main part of the answer, or your example, which is the actions bit, right? Where you describe in terms of what were the actions that you took to address the challenge in that particular situation that you're talking about. What did you do? um, how was your contribution important, and things like that, right? So a step by step process of what actions you took in that situation. um, I just say one thing here. When we interview candidates, a lot of times we tend to speak in third person, or we tend to use we a lot instead of I. So I'd say that try and use I more than we, purely because it gives the interviewers an indicator of what exactly your contribution was in that situation. So yeah, one simple thing to keep in mind. Lastly, the result. Um, Obviously, as the name suggests, you talk about what was the outcome, right? What was it that you achieved by the actions that you previously mentioned? um, and again, I'd say this is not just Amazon. It is a very good practice to follow, i.e., to quantify your results, right? So when you talk about the outcome or the result, try and quantify it as much as you can. Try using data points, just so that the interviewer can gauge as to what was the quantified outcome of what you did, or the actions that you took. So that's super important. Um, so that was the STAR methodology, and this slide just gives you some tips for the interviews. Again, it might sound a bit cliched, and might be like stating the obvious, but I can tell you these are super important things to keep in mind when you are interviewing for any role. Going through the job description, things like reviewing the projects or the work that you've done, making a list of that. So I always tend to advise the candidates when I'm doing a preparation call with them, um, try and make sure you list down all your achievements in a piece of paper or a notebook somewhere, um, just so that you can go through all of that before your interview, just so that it stays fresh in your mind. A lot of times it could be that you've done some great work, but then during the interview it might just not spring to mind. So yeah, that's a very old school way of doing it, but then it's quite effective. Star methodology we already covered. Um, Always be ready for follow-up questions, right? So once you're done answering your questions, there'll be a lot of follow-up questions. What could you have done differently? What were the lessons learned? Things like that. So that's important that you prepare for that. um, Practice your interview responses aloud. I'd say, I mean, I personally, for example, and being an introvert, um, that's something which I would definitely do. So yeah, that's one thing. If you would want to do, just gives you that confidence when you actually are at the interview. Um, Prepare for some questions for the interviewer. And again, it's not just for the sake of doing it. It's super important to ask those questions which you might not find in the public domain, which might not be present on the job description or the company website, right? It's essentially crucial set of information that you would get from the interviewer, which essentially helps you to make an informative decision at the end, right? So that's a super important thing which you can utilize, and that would definitely help you. And again, like I mentioned, research about the role, the company, the job description, that's super important as well. Um, just some do's and don'ts. Again, I've covered some of it already. Using of data, be concise and structured. Again, the star method that I mentioned, that is super helpful, super powerful, for you to be, structured in the way you answer your questions. Um, and then follow up if you need clarification, things like that. Earlier also I mentioned focus on your contribution, usage of I versus we. That's very important as well. And don'ts, again, avoid generalization. Don't omit parts of your story. Try and be as authentic as you can, which is super important, I'd say. And lastly, don't rely on a single example. Just goes back to my previous point that I mentioned around preparation or jotting things down on a piece of paper or a notebook. Preparation is super important because, again, it's good for you to use as many different examples from your past experience as you can. It just gives the set of interviewers, when they come together for a debrief to take a hiring decision, um, it just gives them enough evidence, enough data points to make a decision, which would go in support of you. So it's always good to be prepared with as many examples. Lastly, just talking a bit about the advantages of how AI can support you in terms of interviews. Again, Tosin mentioned about the advantages, and um, things like how human input is super important. Uh, I just wanted to mention a few things how AI can be be an advantage for you during your preparation phase, right? So it's there's no harm in using AI, which would sort of enable you to be well prepared for your interviews. So you can always use that for improving clarity or grammatical accuracy and things like that. Um, but then, like I previously mentioned, the example or the answer that you're sharing, it should be completely authentic. It should be yours, right? The ideas should come from you, and then AI is always there as a tool that sort of assists you in sort of refining your answers, in a way that would just present your example in a much better way. So yeah, those were the things that I wanted to share. I think that would bring us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much. And just want to mention, if anyone over here is interested in the opportunities that we have within Amazon, feel free to register yourself using this QR code. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Lovely. While we wait for questions, I saw a comment from Shana that companies value the bottom line, and if they can replace a team of 100 with 10 people, they will. The way I like to think about it is efficiency. So that how can we be more efficient? And that's what companies like to think about. So if there's a way you can do something more efficiently to achieve more, then companies are generally wired to go in that direction. So the responsibility on us then is to ensure that we have those competencies, or we continue to improve on what we do to drive efficiency within the organizations that we work for, and to remove all the waste, that can easily clog the process. Right? What are your thoughts, Jobin? Sorry, putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely spot on there. It's more about taking the time that you spend to do on a lot of admin things, um, reduce that, and then try and do or use that time in more productive things, right? Use those tools, use those AI tools to make sure that you're free from all those repetitive tasks. But yeah, it's about the efficiency and productivity, and how you sort of use AI to help yourself, rather than thinking that it would replace us, as previously mentioned.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we have some questions. So Oluwakemi says, is there anything you would want to improve about how you use AI, how you see AI being used at work currently? Um, a lot of conversations that we are having nowadays is the human moments in the work that we do. And I believe this applies as well across board to other fields. So we work in the talent acquisition space. We work in the human relationship management space, HR. So the human is extremely important. And I personally like to think that this is also important across board. So it's how can we improve, how can we increase the human moment in the midst of all of this automation that is going on? Yeah. Jobin, I don't know if you want to add to that before we go to the next one.
No, I think you've covered it. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that answered it, Oluwakemi. So the next one from Johanna is it good? I like this one. Is it good to mention in the interview that you've used AI tool? Oh, that you used AI tool to apply. So I was thinking about actually using AI during the interview, but you're saying that is it good to mention it during the interview that you used an AI tool to apply? I mean, I'm not sure what that information would do, like what value that information would bring to the interviewers. I don't know. Like maybe I'm struggling to understand it. So people use AI to create their CV. As long as it's a CV that communicates your value and has all the experience and the rest of that, and clearly articulates what you want to pass across, then that's personal. That's fine. For the application itself, companies have different types of systems, what you call the applicant tracking system. So when you apply to the company, you have like an interface that you have to work with. In general, you cannot use, I don't know if you can use AI for some type of applications or some company interfaces, but you basically upload your CV. So I personally don't think there's any need to mention that because it's your CV. So you prefer that you supervised it. And yeah, I personally don't see the need to mention that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a pre-application stage, right? Wherein
Yeah.
you're asking if it is okay to mention you use an AI tool to apply. Um,
Mm,
I mean, as long as you apply and then let's say you go through an interview process, it's that's the stage where you're evaluated, right?
exactly.
From the application stage onwards. So I don't think it would matter that much.
Yeah. Same. And for the interview itself, companies generally have like policies. So this is where I would say you need to like it's important to understand the stance of the company. So some companies will clearly tell you that please do not use AI for this technical problem. if you use AI, obviously they would know. I think sometimes candidates think that people would not know, but these people are well calibrated, well experienced interviewers. They also use AI themselves. So when you're giving them an AI style solution, it's sort of obvious. So if the company has a policy and they tell you, they communicate this to you, then if you use AI, then that's violating the policy, and that already puts you in a different bucket. If you're not sure, please ask. Don't make any assumptions, using AI and the like, because that might disqualify your application.
Yeah, yeah. Like for example, in Amazon, we have certain roles would have a writing exercise, certain roles, and when that's sent to the candidates, that comes with a disclaimer that says that
Yes.
you can use certain tools to sort of improve any grammatical or any presentation of your answer, but then it does say that you have to make sure that the content of it is authentic and comes from you.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Dina says, how many stages of interviews are there for Amazon role? So Amazon is huge. We have different business lanes. So it might not be easy or straightforward to give one answer. But what I can say is first, you of course have to apply, get shortlisted, and then you have some technical round of interviews. So might be one, might be two, depending. Like Jobin mentioned, some roles will get an assessment before the final stage, which is the loop, the Amazon loop that every external candidate has to go through. That's where, depending on the role and the level of the role, you will have a certain number of interviewers interview you. So it can be 3 stages, it can be 4, it can be, yeah, 5. It just depends on the role and the particular business lane. Okay, I think we can take one more. Um, Yeah. So, Jobin, we like to take that. Yeah, Johanna says, I've seen some applications asking people not to use AI at all when applying.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, kind of like what I mentioned earlier as well, right? So now a lot of it comes with a disclaimer that, what you can use AI
Yes.
for and what you cannot.
Cannot.
Um, so that's the clear difference that we need to understand and
Mm.
use high judgment. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And if the company says don't use I would say don't use AI. Maybe they have a tool internally for checking these things. And if they realize that this person has, violated again the policy that they put out, that might be someone like they decide not to consider for some reason. I don't know. Like companies have different reasons for the things that they do. So if for you already that's a red flag, then maybe it's not the right company or the right role. But if you want to try for that company and they say not to use it, again, I would say, yeah, don't use it. Okay. Very good. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining the session. We will, be again at the event tomorrow. Would also be at the booth. So feel free to, yeah, come around and say hi. All right.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.